Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, pouring your coffee, casually scrolling through your phone, and you see a headline that just makes your stomach completely drop.
Oh, yeah, that absolute wave of dread.
Right, because you find out that your physical home address, your personal phone number, and even like specific records of when an internet technician visited your house might be sitting on the dark web.
Just being freely traded by cybercriminals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the truly agonizing part. Your internet provider hasn't actually confirmed that a breach even happened.
So you're just stuck.
Right, you are just sitting there in this incredibly anxious limbo, caught entirely between the shadowy hacker group's boast on the internet and a very slow-moving corporate investigation.
It is a profoundly unsettling position to find yourself in, and yet this isn't some hypothetical sci-fi scenario we're dreaming up.
No, not at all.
It is a very real situation, currently facing potentially over 1 million people, and it represents a massive evolution in how cybercriminals are operating today.
Welcome to Tech Talks with Kinsoft. Today we are acting as your personal guides through a stack of recent, highly detailed cybersecurity reports from eSecurity Planet and SecurityWeek.
We've got a lot of ground to cover.
We really do.
Okay.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We are going to examine the unverified yet highly publicized claims made recently against the broadband provider Brightspeed.
Yeah, that's a fascinating case study in modern extortion.
It really is. And then we are going to trace the shadowy kind of domino effect track record of the group claiming responsibility, the Crimson Collective.
Which is a terrifying group to look into.
Completely. And finally, we will explore a fundamental shift in cybercrime overall. A shift where hackers are, well, they're abandoning the old strategy of locking up your computer systems and moving entirely toward pure, unadulterated extortion based solely on stolen data.
That shift, that is the most critical piece of this whole puzzle. Because as an industry, and frankly just as consumers who entrust these companies with our personal lives, we have to learn how to soberly assess these unverified extortion claims.
Right, without just instantly panicking.
Exactly. The mechanics of these attacks have completely changed, which means our reaction to them has to change as well.
So let's start with the target and the claim.
Yeah.
The company currently in the crosshairs is Brightspeed.
Right.
And for those who might not be familiar with them, they are a major fiber broadband provider in the U.S. They serve over 1 million business and home users across 20 states.
And they primarily operate in rural and suburban communities, right?
Yep, mostly rural and suburban. So we are talking about a critical piece of infrastructure for a massive number of people who rely on them for their daily connectivity, their remote work, running their small businesses, all of it.
And the timeline of how this unfolded is really crucial to understanding this new playbook we mentioned. In early January 2026, Brightspeed announced they had opened an official investigation into a, quote, cybersecurity event.
Cybersecurity event. Such a beautifully vague corporate phrase.
It is, but notice the context there. This wasn't because their internal alarms were blaring about a locked network or offline servers, right? The business was still running.
Okay, so why did they announce it?
Because on January 4th, the group calling itself Crimson Collective took to Telegram.
Telegram. I mean, it really has become the modern town square for cyber extortionists to hold their little press conferences, hasn't it?
It serves their purposes perfectly, yeah. On Telegram, Crimson Collective publicly claimed to have stolen data on more than 1 million Brightspeed customers.
Wow, 1 million.
And they didn't just, type out a threatening text post. They shared screenshots and small data samples to act as purported proof of that conquest.
And looking at our sources, the specific data they claim to hold is incredibly extensive.
Yeah, it's not just emails.
No, we are talking about full account master records. So this includes names, emails, phone numbers, billing addresses, and physical service addresses, plus all the account metadata.
And it gets worse.
It does. The group is alleging that customer payment histories and masked payment card details may have also been accessed, along with actual appointment and service order records.
See, if those claims are true, it's a comprehensive profile of a household or a business.
It really is.
It's not just a digital footprint anymore, it is a physical one. I mean, when you leak physical service addresses and exact technician appointment times, you are bridging the gap between cyber vulnerability and real-world physical security.
That is such a creepy thought. But, and I want to make sure we really emphasize this for anyone following this story, as of mid-January, Brightspeed had not confirmed any data exfiltration.
Right. That's a huge point.
They had not confirmed a compromise of their production systems. The claims remained entirely unverified.
Yes, strictly allegations at this stage.
Which brings me to an analogy that kind of helps me wrap my head around the absurdity of this tactic. This feels like a hostage situation where the kidnappers mail a Polaroid to a local news station, but the police haven't even confirmed that anyone is actually missing from their homes yet.
That's exactly what this is.
So if the Crimson Collective just claims they have this data, why would a company even publicly respond or acknowledge it before their own forensic team confirms it?
Because of the psychological pressure cooker these groups rely on, you have to look at the leverage Crimson Collective is trying to manufacture here.
Okay.
They didn't quietly email an executive at Brightspeed and ask for a ransom to keep things quiet. That is the old way of doing things.
Right, the old behind closed doors shakedown.
Exactly. Instead, they sent this supposed proof of possession to independent cybersecurity experts who actively monitor the dark web. They posted on Telegram, publicly warning that a much larger data sample would be released if their financial demands weren't met.
So they are deliberately weaponizing public panic.
Precisely.
They want the media, the security researchers, and most importantly, the terrified customers to do all the heavy lifting of pressuring the company into a payout.
Yep. The goal is to make the noise so absolutely deafening that the company feels compelled to pay up just to stop the bleeding of their reputation.
But practically speaking, I want to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
How can a CEO just sit on their hands while their brand is getting dragged all over social media and the news? Because the sources note that class action lawsuits followed almost immediately after that Telegram post,
Yes, they did.
just based on the rumor. I mean, if unverified claims alone trigger massive legal action of brand damage, isn't silence from the company just as damaging as the supposed breach?
It's a brutal dilemma, for sure. But giving in to the panic is exactly what the attackers are banking on. This is why it is so critically important for organizations and for you listening to this to learn how to soberly assess these situations.
Sober assessment over panic.
Always. Because attackers exaggerate. They routinely inflate the scope of what they've stolen to maximize their leverage. We've seen numerous cases where a group recycles old public data from a third-party breach.
Oh, like they just repackage old stuff?
Exactly. They package it up and claim it's a fresh, direct compromise of a new target company. If a CEO panics and pays out, or even issues a statement confirming a massive breach before forensics are completely done, they might be reacting to a complete fabrication.
Wow.
The period between the claim and the confirmation requires absolute operational discipline.
So Brightspeed's response of basically saying, we are investigating, we take this seriously, but we haven't confirmed it, is really the only viable playbook while the IT team is digging through the logs.
It's the only responsible move, yes.
But that leads us to a really important question. If threat actors bluff so frequently, why is the cybersecurity world taking the Crimson Collective's claims so seriously in the first place? Why assume there's fire behind all this smoke?
Well, the concern stems from their resume. This aggressive, highly public pressure tactic isn't happening in a vacuum. It is the signature move of a group with a proven, very recent, and incredibly damaging track record.
And that track record is just a history of terrifying domino effects.
Yeah, let's look at the timeline.
Let's trace this back just a few months to October 2025. Crimson Collective pulled off a massive breach of a Red Hat GitLab instance.
Yay.
Our sources show they exfiltrated roughly 570 gigabytes of data across 28,000 private internal development repositories. And they primarily hit Red Hat's consulting division.
And pulling that volume of data out of a highly sophisticated enterprise environment like Red Hat, that is a significant technical feat.
But wait, I have to push back on the severity of this for a second.
Okay.
Red Hat is famously known for open source software development. If these GitLab repositories are basically just software code, why is this level of theft considered such a devastating blow? It's not like they stole a giant database of social security numbers.
That assumption is exactly what makes targeting source code so insidious.
How so?
The danger isn't necessarily the code itself, it is the supply chain vulnerability it creates. We have to look at the mechanics of what is actually inside those repositories.
Right, because it was the consulting division.
Exactly. These aren't public open source tools. These repositories often contain the literal architecture of other companies' networks.
Oh, I see.
They hold configuration files, deployment scripts, and critically hard-coded credentials or API keys that are meant to integrate different corporate environments together.
Oh, wow. Okay, so to use an analogy, It's not like the thieves broke into a parking garage and stole a bunch of cars. It's like they broke into the valet stand, smashed open the master lockbox, and stole the keys to every single car that happens to be parked there.
That is the absolute perfect way to visualize it. You now have the keys to environments you weren't even originally targeting.
That's terrifying.
And we saw the real-world fallout of this valet key theft almost immediately. In December 2025, just 2 months after the Red Hat breach, the Japanese automaker Nissan had to come forward.
Right, the Nissan breach.
They confirmed that the personal information of 21,000 of their Japanese customers was exposed, and the root cause. It was specifically traced back to those compromised Red Hat repositories.
So they didn't hack Nissan directly at first.
Nope. The Crimson Collective stole from Red Hat, and the credentials hidden within that stolen data provided the direct avenue to break into Nissan's customer database.
That is the domino effect in action right there.
Yeah.
You hack Company A, not because you want Company A's data, but to get the leverage or the access keys to hit Company B, C, and D.
Exactly.
And our sources show that Crimson Collective's tactics are only escalating, and they are expanding their network to do it. They don't work in isolation anymore.
No, they're building alliances.
Yeah, they partnered up with the Scattered Lapses Hunters Collective. They utilize the Shiny Hunters leak site to amplify their extortion threats. They are building a genuine syndicate.
Which raises an important point about their technical capabilities. Security researchers have linked this specific group to highly sophisticated attacks on Amazon Web Services, or AWS environments.
AWS is huge.
Massive.
Yeah.
And the mechanism of how they operate within AWS is deeply concerning. They aren't just sending phishing emails hoping an employee clicks a bad link.
Right.
They are actively exploiting exposed credentials to create rogue identity and access management, or IAM accounts.
Wait, let me stop you there because I want to make sure I understand the mechanics of this. How are they creating rogue admin accounts without tripping every single security alarm in the building?
That's sneaky.
I mean, if I try to install an unapproved app on my work laptop, my IT department knows in about 3 seconds. How does a hacker secretly create an entire administrator account?
It comes down to manipulating permission policies and hiding within the noise of automated systems.
Okay.
They often don't create an account that looks like a human user like, John in accounting. Instead, they target non-human identities, what we call service accounts.
Service accounts.
Yeah, these are accounts used by applications to talk to other applications, which often have incredibly high privileges, but just aren't monitored the same way human logins are.
Oh, because it's just software talking to software.
Exactly. So by exploiting misconfigurations, they grant these service accounts hidden permissions. They establish persistent, invisible backdoors inside the cloud environment, escalate their privileges quietly, and then systematically steal data at scale, entirely blending in with normal automated cloud traffic.
So they're setting up their own administrative access right into the nose of the company's IT department, disguised as routine software communication.
Precisely.
But you know what stands out to me the most about all of these incidents? The AWS attacks, the Red Hat supply chain breach, the alleged Brightspeed incident. None of them involve ransomware in the traditional sense.
No, they don't. It is a striking pattern, and it really defines the modern threat landscape.
I mean, no one's computers were locked. There were no encrypted hard drives with a red skull and crossbones on the screen demanding Bitcoin just to turn the servers back on.
Right.
And that leads us directly into what our sources identify as the data-centric extortion era.
We are witnessing a fundamental paradigm shift in the business model of cybercrime.
It's wild.
For years, the absolute gold standard for threat actors was encryption-based ransomware. The playbook was simple. You break in, you encrypt the servers, you bring the company's daily operations to a grinding halt, and you demand a massive ransom in exchange for the decryption key.
Right. But that model has become increasingly difficult, expensive, and risky for the attackers to maintain, hasn't it?
Extremely.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. Why go through all the trouble of building and deploying complex encryption malware? It's incredibly noisy, it trips antivirus and behavioral alarms, it requires a massive amount of technical overhead to maintain.
And honestly, half the time the decryptor tools the hackers give you don't even work properly anyway.
Right, which completely ruins their quote-unquote reputation as reliable extortionists. So they're just abandoning the encryption part entirely.
It is purely a matter of return on investment. Why build out complex encryption software when you can just quietly steal the most sensitive data you can find? They don't want the hassle of locking the networks anymore. They just use the threat of public disclosure or selling that data to other criminals as their sole point of leverage.
It's like a burglar realizing they don't need to go through the effort of changing the deadbolts on your house to keep you out. They just need to sneak in through an open window, steal your private diary, and then threaten to stand on the sidewalk and read it through a megaphone to your entire neighborhood unless you pay them.
That's exactly it.
The leverage isn't denying you access to your own house. The leverage is entirely based on public humiliation, brand destruction, and the inevitable regulatory fines.
That analogy perfectly captures the shift in leverage. And because the attackers are explicitly targeting identities and cloud infrastructure to steal that diary, rather than trying to break the house itself, our entire defensive posture has to change.
Because the old tools don't work.
Right. You can't fight data extortion with the same tools you use to fight ransomware. The sources we are looking at outline a defense strategy built heavily on zero trust principles.
I hear zero trust thrown around a lot as an industry buzzword, but let me wrestle with what that actually means practically. So zero trust isn't just a bigger, better firewall.
No, not at all.
If I'm understanding this right, you're treating the inside of your network as if it's already compromised. Every single time a user or an application tries to access a file, you check their ID at the door. It's like turning every single file folder into a heavily guarded border crossing.
You've hit the nail on the head. Because groups like Crimson Collective are using legitimate, albeit stolen or manipulated, credentials like those AWS service accounts we discussed, you cannot rely on a strong perimeter defense.
Right, because they already have the key.
Exactly. Once they are inside, they look like they belong there. Therefore, companies must prioritize hardening their IAM configurations.
Okay, so strictly enforcing least privilege access.
Yes, a marketing intern's account or an automated billing script should absolutely never have the technical permissions to even view the core customer database, let alone download it. And you have to constantly rotate those credentials to render stolen valet keys useless.
The sources also talk a lot about data loss prevention, or DLP, and egress controls.
Oh, yes, crucial.
If the attacker's entire business model is to exfiltrate data like, to physically copy it and move it out of your network to their own servers, you have to watch the exit doors just as closely, if not more closely, than the entrance.
Exactly. DLP tools act like a security guard checking bags on the way out of the building. If a cloud server that normally sends, say, a few megabytes of routine telemetry data a day suddenly tries to export 500 gigabytes of compressed customer records to an unknown IP address in another country, the egress controls need to be configured to automatically sever that connection.
Cut it off immediately.
But preventing the theft is only half the battle. The sources heavily emphasize that visibility is equally critical. You need to maintain immutable, centralized logs.
Immutable, meaning they are mathematically locked. They cannot be altered, edited, or deleted, not even by someone holding an administrator account.
Right.
But why is that specific feature the silver bullet in this scenario?
Remember our discussion earlier about soberly assessing unverified claims and bluffs?
Yeah, avoiding the panic.
Exactly. When a group like Crimson Collective posts on Telegram and says, "We just stole 1 million customer records," you need to know immediately, unequivocally, if they are lying.
Ah, I see.
If your access logs are centralized and immutable, your forensics team can look at the exact timeline and say, no, it is mathematically impossible for that volume of data to have left our network in that time frame. Or conversely, yes, we see the exact rogue IAM account they used, and we know exactly what they took.
Wow, okay.
Without those immutable logs, you are flying completely blind during a massive crisis, which leads right back to panic.
Which brings us to the human element of this crisis management. For you, the listener, or for any company leader who might face this scenario, how do you actually prepare for the PR nightmare of an extortion-driven breach? Because if the servers are never locked, it's not just an IT problem anymore.
That is the core vulnerability most companies haven't addressed. IT recovery, meaning restoring systems from offline backups, isn't enough anymore because your systems were never down in the first place.
The business kept running while the data was stolen.
Exactly. Companies must fundamentally update their incident response plans. The sources recommend tabletop exercises, which are highly realistic role-playing simulations for the executive team. But these exercises must focus entirely on data disclosure.
Right, so the simulation shouldn't be the main servers are encrypted and offline.
Yeah.
The simulation should be a hacker just tweeted a screenshot of our VIP customer database and is demanding $5 million. The press is calling. Go.
Precisely. Who drafts the regulatory response? Which legal team is on standby? How do we communicate with customers to protect them before the panic sets in?
And who handles the legal ramifications if class action lawsuits are filed based purely on a rumor?
Yes, the corporate response has to be as coordinated, rapid, and sophisticated as the attack itself.
So what does this all mean for the situation at hand? To summarize, we are all currently in a waiting game. We have to wait for Brightspeed's internal investigation to conclude.
We do.
We have to wait and see if the Crimson Collective's claim of holding 1 million customer records is actually true, or if it is a highly calculated recycled bluff designed to force a quick payout. But whether verified or not, the mechanics of this incident perfectly encapsulate the terrifying shift toward pure data-centric extortion.
It absolutely does. And if we follow the logic of this evolution, it leaves us with a rather chilling path forward.
Chilling how?
Well, if threat actors are completely moving away from extorting the company to purely leveraging the stolen data, what happens when they realize they can just cut out the corporate middleman entirely?
Wait, what do you mean, cut the company out of the extortion?
Think about the highly specific metadata that Crimson Collective claimed to have stolen from Brightspeed.
Okay.
It wasn't just generic names and emails, it was session IDs, it was specific service appointment times. What is stopping these syndicates from automating their extortion?
Oh, no.
Imagine them using artificial intelligence to parse that massive database of metadata and automatically send highly convincing, deeply personalized ransom demands directly to 1 million individual users.
Oh, wow.
A text message that says, "We know you have an internet service appointment at your home at 2 p.m. on Thursday. Pay us $50 in Bitcoin, or we release your browsing session IDs and payment history to everyone in your contact list."
That is insane.
No corporate negotiations, no million-dollar demands to a CEO. Just 1 million micro-extortions executed automatically and simultaneously. That is the next logical step in data-centric cybercrime.
That is horrifying. And it really brings us back to that opening thought. The kidnapper's Polaroid mailed to the news station. Except in this near future, the burglar doesn't just read your diary with a megaphone to the neighborhood. They use an automated system to call every single person you know simultaneously, demanding a few dollars from you to stay quiet.
It's a completely different scale of threat.
The next time you see a headline about a massive data breach, you'll know exactly what's happening behind the scenes. You won't just see a company under attack. You'll recognize the bluffs, the zero-trust failures, and this inevitable shift toward data extortion.
It makes the need for proactive zero-trust defense not just a corporate priority, but an absolute societal necessity. It requires constant vigilance. We have to secure that data before the megaphone is ever picked up.
Absolutely. And that is exactly why we explore these sources, so you aren't caught off guard when the tactics change. If you are looking to harden your own systems against these modern threats, visit www.kinsoft.com.au to discuss your security and IT needs. Thank you for joining us on Tech Talks with Kinsoft. We hope this gives you a clearer lens through which to view the headlines. Stay safe out there, keep an eye on your data, and we will catch you on the next one.